Hello, welcome to my video. Today I'm going to show you how I made this embroidery cake. It's a fondant cake and the embroidery is made out of royal icing. I love how it turned out. It's a bit more time consuming, but I think the time was well worth it. And yeah, this is the cake, and stay with me until the end so you can see how I decorated it. And if you like my channel, please subscribe so you can see more of my content. So I'm going to assemble my cake. As you can see, all my cake is in some foil, so that's a very good tip if you want to keep your cake moist. As soon as your cake is a little bit cooled down from the oven, wrap it in some foil and leave it in the fridge. You can use it the next day, or if you're going to use it after more days, just put it in the freezer. You can use it later once it is frozen. It's going to be fine, but even if it's gonna be just for the fridge, put it in some foil, that way you're going to keep it moist. Then I'm going to assemble my cake, putting some banana buttercream between the layers of the cake. This is one of my mini cakes. As I told you in another video, I like to make that mini cake so you can try different techniques of decoration without having to have so much cake at home. Also, I'm planning to make some videos about some healthy recipes. I love to do cakes, but I think I should eat some more healthy foods, and that's why I'm going to show you some another recipes, not just cakes but also for dinner. I bought some quinoa to show you some quinoa meatball recipes sometime in future, but I'm not quite sure when exactly I'm going to make them. And I'm also planning to show you some recipe that I'm making in the Ninja Food that I recently bought. I wanted to buy an air fryer for quite some time, but my kitchen is so small that I never thought I'm going to have enough space. Well, I still don't have space, but I kind of fit it on the counter. But that thing, I love it so much because you can fry food without actually having all this oil in it. And also another thing is that the aspiration at my apartment doesn't work, so when I try to fry something or even some time with the oven, it's so hot inside and it smells like food so much. And another thing is I don't even have a dishwasher, so when I cook something first on the stove then in the oven, it's so much mess, so many pans. So yeah, I was very happy about that air fryer, but when I start making some food I had some more burnt food, some dry meats, and I figured out that it's cooking the stuffs a little bit faster. So I'm going to show you some recipes that I like to do in that thing. And let's go back to the cake. So you can see that I assembled the cake and I'm going to frost it. I don't even know why I'm using that silicone spatula. I should have used another one. So yeah, don't use the silicone spatula, it's way harder. Use the metal one. I'm sure I'm gonna pick it up sometime later, hopefully. And yeah, so you're going to smooth out the edges. And if the weather is hot, just throw the cake a little bit in the fridge or in the freezer so your buttercream can be a little bit chill and it's going to be easier to smooth out. That's very necessary in the summer months. I'm right now in North Carolina, and I know that when the summer hits I have to throw the cakes every 15 minutes in the freezer, otherwise it's going to be so hot and my buttercream is going to be kind of melty and harder to smooth out on the cake. And another thing is you put one layer, the crumb coat, that prevents the crumbs to go all over in the buttercream. Put the cake in the freezer and then put the second layer of buttercream. After you frost your cake and smooth out all the edges, you're going to put it in the fridge or in the freezer so it can chill good. When it's chilled, you can start putting the fondant on the cake. You want to make sure that you always have a nice chilled cake when you put a fondant on it, otherwise the fondant is going to destroy the buttercream. The buttercream is soft and you put the fondant, it's going to be messy. You're not going to have some nice edges on the cake and it's just going to be so much harder. And also once when you put the fondant on the cake, if you remove it and try to place it again, there will be already some buttercream on the fondant, so it's just not gonna end up good. So yeah, just chill out your cake nice and it's going to be so much easier later. After that, I'm going to get my fondant. So my fondant, I usually like to make my fondant the previous day or even few days before I'm going to use it, so I can make it. Then I'm going to put it in some plastic wrap, and it's going to stay that way without drying out. But I like to make it not at the moment when I'm going to use it, because I've heard that it's better. And so when I use my fondant, I'm just going to get it out of the wrap and I'm going to roll it out. If it's a little bit hard like a rock, I'm just going to put it in the microwave for like 3-4 seconds, so it's going to be easy to roll out. So as you can see, I'm rolling out a big piece, and this time I'm not going to put the fondant on the top of the cake and just work my way out. I'm going to make the top square just for the top of the cake, and this long piece I'm going to put around the cake. I find this technique easier for cube cake because you don't have so much excess fondant dripping all over the cake. And so once when you put it together, you're going to just smooth out the edges. Next step is making the royal icing that I'm going to use for the embroidery. Pretty much I mixed 1 egg white with half a pound of powdered sugar, and I'm going to put it in some piping bag, and I'm going to make the flowers. So I'm going to use a brush that I use only for cakes, and the brush that I'm using is with some harder hair. You want to make sure that your brush has a harder hair. You can use the ones with the soft hairs for another projects, but for this one you're gonna have some better embroidery with the harder hair of the brush. And also make sure that your brush doesn't leave hairs all over the place. If it's kind of shredding, just get another brush, because you don't want to end up with some brush from a hair in your cake. That's going to be gross. Here you are some closer look of what I'm doing. I'm going to pipe out the flower, and I'm going to pipe out pretty much only the outline of the flower. You don't want to pipe too much stuff in the middle, because when you brush the icing towards the middle of the flower, you're going to end up with a lot of icing anyway in the middle, and then you're going to just put some dots in the at the end, so you don't have to put so much icing right now inside the flower. And you're going to brush in most of the icing inside the flower, but not all of it. You're going to leave the outline visible so you can actually see the shape of the flower, and you're going to work all the way out for each flower that way. If you end up getting too much icing and you destroy the shape of the flower, simply pipe little bits extra of the icing on that spot and you're going to fix the issue. Also, if you end up with way too much icing in the middle of the flower, you can just scoop it out with the brush and put it on some paper towel, and you're going to fix the problem. Pretty much it's very easy to fix something if you don't make it perfect. And another suggestion that I have and that I've seen a lot of people do is for making the flowers, they actually use a cake cutter in the shape of the flower, and they press the cake cutter not too hard so you don't destroy your fondant, but just press it a little bit all over the cake on the fondant, and they have the shape of the flower traced out, and after that they just pipe it on the traced lines. I didn't do that because when I put the fondant on my cake, I let it in the fridge for a night, and I decided to decorate it on the next day. So when I get my cake out of the fridge, the fondant was already set and hard, and when I tried to press the cake cutter, it almost broke the fondant, and if you break your fondant, it's going to be not so good. So you don't want to risk that. If you're going to use the technique with the cutters, you're going to use it with the fresh fondant that you just put on the cake, and don't leave it in the fridge before that. But that's just a flower also, so it's not some hard shape to do. So if you put the cake in the fridge or if you don't have a cake cutter, it's not a big deal really. Also, I like to make the fondant and the icing the same color. I find it way more elegant. With the buttercream embroidery, if you watch that video, I used two different colors because that was all buttercream, and if I would use the same color, I don't feel it's going to look like, it's just gonna look like a mess. It wouldn't have defined flowers, but since you're using this technique with the royal icing and the fondant, feel free to use the same exact shade and the same color. That's going to make it so nice and elegant. Or if you're going to use different colors, I imagine probably some baby pink cake with some white royal icing or something like that is going to look very nice. Just don't make it too like vibrant colors. Of course you can do whatever you like, but I feel like if you make too vibrant colors, it's not going to be that elegant. And yeah, so you're just going to make the flowers. Between the flowers you're going to make some ornaments, any kind of ornaments that you're going to pipe is going to look beautiful. And in the middle of every flower you're going to make some dots. The royal icing itself is enough decoration. I didn't even use my white pearls. I felt like if I use some pearls it's going to be a bit too much for this decoration. So yeah, just work your way all the way around the cake, brush all the flowers so you can have some nice embroidery and have fun. This is the end result, as you can see, so elegant and nice. And the cake is ready. I'm happy with the result. Of course, my cube shapes are still not perfect. I'm still practicing that, but they're gonna get better with time. So yeah, thank you for watching and have a great day.